Well, this is gonna be awkward as heck without a script, but, hi, welcome to How I Draw. I've started off with a quick pencil sketch because I know that a lot of people, not a lot because I don't get a lot of comments, but a bunch of people said that they can do non-digital art, but they struggle a bit with digitizing it and stuff, so I thought I'd do a quick pencil sketch and work with that. You probably can't see half of it though because my hand is in the way. Probably not the best filming conditions. My apologies. God, this is awkward. I don't have a script. Now it's time to digitize. Woo! Right, so the first step is making your sketch a lower opacity so it's lighter. And then you can start drawing on top. Now, the important thing about digital brushes is that, as you can see, the slower you go, the rougher the line. The quicker you go, the smoother the line. It's faster to get smooth lines and slower to get probably more accurate but rougher lines. A good brush is also a good idea. If you have a hard brush for lining, that is ideal. Hard and soft is basically just how many pixels come off it. A soft brush would be an airbrush. A nice hard brush would be an inking brush like these free brushes from free Photoshop brushes from Adobe. Kyle's pack, whoever Kyle is. Time for references. Now, references are really good. I literally just took them straight from the video, lol. But, yeah, it's good to get a few different expressions from vaguely the same angle. Just because people can look hella different on different angles and different lighting scenarios, but we're not going to worry about lighting because these are just chibis. So yeah, first step, new layer, so you don't end up drawing all over your sketch and F things up. When I was looking at Doyoung, I looked at his jaw and I went, ooh, boy got big jaw. So made sure to include that. Again, faster, smoother. It's easier just to get faster and smoother lines and then erase what you've gone over or where you've got excess. I live by this. Just kidding. But no, if you're doing smooth lining on stuff like Photoshop or say Autodesk, then it's a good idea. If you got something like Sai, it's probably not as necessary, I suppose. Sai or Clip Studio, because they have better brush stabilizers. Get it on Adobe, please. Photoshop needs a better brush stabilizer. So it's always a good idea to look at your reference images and just do a few sketches to see what probably looks most suitable, especially if you're doing something more stylized like this. If it's something more realistic, you can probably just do it straight from the image. But yeah. So just zooming through, I guess. Yeah, no, eyes are hard, man. They're so recognizable as a part of people and so easy to F up, I suppose. Yep, stuffed up his eyes, but I think you'll see I changed them a bit later to try and get him to look more like him, obviously. Wow, this is awkward. I should have written a script. Now I move on to Renjun, or Renjun. Yep, just the same old. Quicker is better, quicker is smoother. Erase the excess. Essentially, that's it. With ears, I like to just do a bunch of scribbles. I don't really pay attention to the people's actual ears, because usually they're covered by hair, and that sucks. That's not as common in drawing, so... Yep. Mouths again. Always fun. Yeah, with the whole picture, I think Doyoung turned out more like himself, but I like how cute Renjun turned out, so here's my favorite. Oh yeah, So, square pupils. I think someone said they liked my square pupils, and yeah, so on the video where I drew Mark for his birthday, I randomly did rectangular, squarish pupils, and I went, huh, that doesn't look bad. And now I'm kind of working with it, you know? I like it. Probably not in my more realistic stuff, but in my more chibi stuff, I'll probably stick with square pupils, at least for a while, until I get bored of it. Well, I think, well, you can't really see it now. It's not as nice now, I guess. But when you add in all the highlights and the coloring, I think it really pops. Because if you just do a dot, that's boring, isn't it? Then you want to be cool. God, I sound lame. I'm probably gonna be quiet for a hot minute. Just enjoy. Oh yeah, so ears. I didn't know what animal to do Renjun as, and Sandra, or Dolphin Noises, was like, well, he kind of reminds you of a bunny rabbit, so I went, oh yeah, let's just do him as a bunny then. And then they can both be bunnies. But then Vanya, another person in our group chat, went, huh? But he's a fox, right? So have fun with my awful attempt at fox ears. They kind of look like cat's ears, but I did my best. It's probably a bit better once they're colored because I added dark tips. Alright, so clipping layers. Clipping layers are really fun. When you put a clipping layer or something, you can see with the pink, it'll only apply to what's underneath the clipping layer because it's clipped to only apply to that layer. And you can have multiple on top of each other, which is always fun. Now, with selection tools, it's so much easier to color with selection tools. Fill bucket is usually on the same layer, but you can fill things on other layers if you use the selection tool. Then you expand selection, so I'm going to show you here how to set a keyboard shortcut for expand selection. So you can just use a magic wand and then expand selection. This is a good tip that I got from my teacher. I'm not sure if it's standard in other programs though. It might just be a Photoshop thing, so if it is, RIP. I can't do anything about that. And essentially I just do that for all of the layers, but once I've got the skin down I can kind of just do all of the hair because the skin will be on an upper layer, so the hair color won't go through it. It's pretty easy, nice and easy. I love clipping layers, honestly. I should have been using them way longer than I have. But sometimes I get lazy and then I'm like, wait, why didn't I? Art things, you know? That's what you get for drawing at 2 AM. Alright, well, I'm gonna shut up for a hot minute until we get to shading. Okay, so now we're at shading. I generally use the multiply method, and someone was like, hey, what the frick's multiply? So I guess I'm showing you. So yeah, clipping layers again, I put all of the colors into one group, and then I put a clipping layer onto that. And as you can see, I like shading with a purpley color, not like a bright one, but a nice and dull purpley color. So here on his ear, you can see me putting it down. Doesn't show up very well, but when I change the layer mode to multiply, you can see it very well, because multiply is a darkening mode, whereas there are other modes like color dodge and overlay or shine on Photoshop, on Paint Tool Sci, that are lightening modes, and then there are contrasty modes as well. They basically change how the color is applied to the below layers. So I'm just doing some fancy purple multiply shading stuff. See, I'm doing it with my pen tool here. I'm just drawing it all in. This is good if you want to be more exact with your shading, like if you want to know exactly where everything is, and you can do the whole select and fill thing with that as well, once you get this down, the outline down. But I actually prefer this method here on Renjun with the lasso tool to select the areas where I want to apply that multiply, and then all in one go I can just fill bucket it and bam, shading. It's quicker, but it is not as precise. So there are pros and cons, I suppose. There's nothing stopping you from going back and rubbing out the excess again, like the lining. After that, I locked the opacity of that layer and did some pink shading onto the purple just to give it a bit of depth, and kind of like to mimic skin when sun hits it. Often gets a bit of a orangey pinky bright hue, because skin has something called subsurface scattering. It's a little fancy though. I'm not entirely qualified to talk about that, so yep, I added pink. That's fun. So looking the opacity, you can do it with that first symbol right below the layer blending modes, and it basically keeps all of any pixels that you've got on that layer will stay there, and then any empty spaces will stay empty spaces. So it's like a clipping layer, but it's on the actual layer. And here I'm going in with a nice light reddish on an overlay layer. So this is one of the blending layer modes that I mentioned. But one of the lighter ones, it's called overlay. It's called shine in Sci, actually, for some reason. Oh, actually, I suppose it's pretty valid. But yeah, just adding it to the highlights. We all love a good hair shine. It doesn't show up very well on Dungeons, but I will show you how I fix that later. We always love some nice shiny eyes. Yep, so this sort of thing shows up a lot better on darker colors, and on lighter colors, not so much. That's why we always go for midtones when we're doing flat colors, so colors before shading. So we have lots of room to do highlights and shadows to make things pop. So even if your idol looks pale as fuck, pale as, and you sample their skin from the video, I guarantee you half of the video is whitewashed anyway, and it's not a very good way to get skin tones. So just look at it, kind of guess where it is, and then go darker, because you can always make it lighter later with highlights. Oh yeah, that was fun. His glasses don't have lenses, and I did notice in that video, but then he full on stuck his finger through those holes in his radio a few days after the video was released, so respect. He does look good with glasses though. Also gives another identifier, because I'm not good at capturing his likeness when I draw. Yeah, so here I've duplicated that layer with the overlay on it, and if you do a blurring filter on it, then you can see it kind of gives you a glow effect, which is fun. Really just refining stuff now. Okay, here I am coloring the outlines. I like, on these chibis, I like leaving a black outline around the edge, but then I color all of the inside lines. So I've put clipping layers over the lining layer to do this. As you can tell, I really love clipping layers. So really, you can do this in two ways. You can do it with the pen tool, like I did on Doyoung, or you can do it with the lasso again, like I did on Renjun. It's really up to you. Lasso is probably quicker and easier, but sometimes I get too lazy to do it the easy way, which is kind of stupid of me, but I never claimed to be an intellectual. Yep, so that's fun. Just writing Renjun, Doyoung. And the good thing about, oh god, my spelling. The good thing about digital is that you always have the undo button and the transform button. Well, the transform controls, so if something is a little tilted, you can just select it and move it. Or make it smaller or bigger. Yep, so if you select what you've got and then you expand selection, like I did with the whole coloring selections, and put white behind it, that's a good way to make it pop. And you can do it with writing as well, just to give it an outline, because Photoshop doesn't have an outline option. You just select the text and then inverse the selection so everything else but the text is selected, and that sort of thing. So here, clipping layer again, and then you can see all the different layer blending modes. I kind of ran through them, and they all have different effects, but I went with multiply once again, and then I lowered the opacity. Haven't quite got to that yet, but yeah, that's what happened. I'll leave you be for a hot second. Alright, so here I'm just adding on the final white highlights. Highlighting those lovely square pupils, which I think look really nice. Yeah, I'm digging them. They're probably going to be a thing for a while, if not. The rest of these chibi drawings that I do on this channel, but here we go. Clipping layer, I like to do a gradient of orange and purple, and I just, as you can see, put it over each of them. And this gives you a little bit of more 3D depth. I do a multiply and then I put an overlay on top and lower the opacity, and it kind of just blends all of the colors together and gives you a bit more lighting in the center and shading on the outsides so that the eye is drawn to the center. And then I do a few contrast and vibrancy saturation modifications, as you can see, just to get those colors to pop. And once I've done all of that, I put the whole picture onto one layer, or copy it onto one layer, and then I do what a lot of artists do, actually, a lot of digital artists, is that to give it a bit more intrigue, well, visual depth, it's a good idea to add noise. So it kind of just colors randomly a bunch of pixels a little bit, like not a lot, and by doing that it kind of gives a nice deep effect. I don't know what I'm saying. Anyway, here's the final picture. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope this cleared things up for you or made it easier for you to understand how digital art works, or was just entertaining, I guess. God, this is awkward. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video if you decide to watch it.